cyali omulamu ekituli ekisooka kakikome wano. Zuukuka n'ensonga.
An engine, no hype, no cosmetics. It's either right or it's a problem. What matters is condition.
I've compiled all my favorite tools you can find on Amazon into one compilation video. And to make it easier for you, I'm going to link to these tools in the description and the pinned comment by timestamp. Speaking of easier, one of the tools that makes my life easier is called a thin rib jig. If you've ever had to make several thin strips on your table saw, this thing is going to be your next best friend. If you see on the router table or the workbench where I've ripped those 1/2 or 3/4 inch wide walnut strips to cover the edge of that plywood to make it look a little better, for various other reasons you need to rip thin strips, this thing will make everything much easier. Let me show you. So it runs in a miter slot, fits most table saw miter slots. Put it behind the blade, never put it at or on the other side of the blade because that could cause kickback. So the way this works is it has a knob on top. You loosen that off and you set the fence where you want it for the first cut. Move this over until it touches your work for the wood you're cutting, and then tighten this knob down. Once you snug this knob down, it's going to snug up in the T-track or in your miter slot as well. That way it doesn't move. And then there's a roller right here on the end that rolls, helps guide the wood through the cut. And I'm going to make several cuts to show you how it works. So once you make the first cut, then you can move your fence over with the stock between the fence and the jig, and then when it bumps, lock your fence down and make your next cut. It's going to be the same every single time. So as you can see, I was able to make 7 strips that are 1/4 inch wide, exactly the same, just by moving the fence. If you've ever tried to make that 1/4 inch strip by setting the fence at a 1/4 inch and then ripping with the 1/4 inch between the blade and the fence, you know at the end of that cut it gets kind of hairy because there's only a 1/4 inch space, so you can't get a push stick in there to finish the cut. And it makes it it's just too dangerous. This makes it a lot safer, and it's a really cool little jig that you can use in multiple places. This is one of those tools you'll be glad you got it when you need it, and they're so inexpensive, it's well worth having it in the shop. It's extremely well made, all aluminum except for this top handle, which is plastic, but other than that, everything is metal, so you're really going to last you a very long time. I like that it has a scale on there, and I like how easy it fits or works on the table saw. I said it'll work on a router table or bandsaw. That's if you have a proper miter slot in there and not T-track. Just keep that in mind. Number 1 on the list is the DFM Small Square. This thing is very small, but it packs a ton of features into a tiny little package. Let me show you. And if you're not a fan of purple, like I am, then you can actually get this in blue, black, gray, or even tie-dye colors. So multiple colors to choose from. I'll put a link in the description below to all the tools you see in the video today. One of the main uses for such a small square is using it to square up the blade on your table saw. The reason the small square works in this situation is it's under the teeth of the blade. So you raise your blade up and then you can put this on there and then move it to square, and the teeth don't affect it. A lot of times on, say, a speed square or any other type of right angle square that is taller than, say, 2 or 3 inches, the teeth start affecting it because you have to make sure that the blade of the square isn't touching one of the teeth on your saw blade. Because if it does, it'll throw it off. If you squared your table saw blade up with a longer square before, you know what I'm talking about. Also, if you have a small bench top bandsaw like I have, it's really great for that because there's not many squares that can fit in this tiny little space to check the square of the blade to the table. This is perfect for that. You can also use this as a drill press to check the square of your drill bits to the table all the way around. Another really cool feature of this little square is it comes with these little metal pins that drop in these holes. And it's going to help you find the center of any board up to this wide. Drop those pins in, then twist it, and then wherever it lands right there is going to be centered. There's a hole in the middle that's 4 pencils and has a small hole down the bottom for pencil lead to go through. You just twist that, and then you just mark the board. And that's going to be your center mark. It also works on thinner stock as well. That's going to be center every time. Of course, a square is a square for a reason, and you can use it to check the square of your cuts if you're using smaller pieces like this or like this. You can also use it to check the face to the edge of a square of thin stock like this. And of course, you can use it on chisels to check, that was not a square. Yeah, you can check the blade of your chisel to see if they're square. Fine. Or not. You'll find a ton of uses for this tiny little square in your shop. It's durable. It's made out of solid aluminum, so even if you chunk it like I just did, it's not going to hurt. And you can stick it in your pocket and keep it with you at all times just in case you're at Walmart and need to know if the shelf is square. DFM setup block. Now, I bought all of these tools. DFM doesn't even know my name. I just saw these on Amazon and thought they were fantastic. So I picked both the square and this up. Check this out. So we got our blade square earlier, remember, with the little setup square. Now we can use the setup block to actually get the height set correctly. What I love about this little block is it's really simple to use. It stands on its own and has clearly marked measurements. This is 1/8, 3/8, 5/8. The other side's quarter, half, 3/4, all the way up to 2 inches. You can use this to set the height of the blade. And the blade itself is precisely 1/4 inch thick, so you can also use it that way instead of 1/4 inch deep. Quarter. And of course, you can also use it here at the router table to set the depth of your bit as needed, all the way from beginning to finish. You can also use it on a fixed base router to set the depth, but it does take a little extra oomph because it'll fall off the edge and not hold square. It's not really the best for this, but it will work. DFM tools are made in the USA. If you like to support USA owned and operating companies, so go check them out. I'll link to this. Spring clamp. This is a 6-inch spring clamp from Tay Tools. You can get this a 10-pack of these for less than $15 at the time of this recording. So you get a ton of these for a low price. They actually come in several different sizes: 2, 3, 4, 6, and 9, I believe. These are the 6-inch models. What's really great about these is they actually have a really strong spring, get a good clamping pressure, and then also pivoting, non-barring jaws on the tip. And then in the jaw hole, there's little teeth. So if you had to clamp around something round like a dial, this will work as well. Most of us work alone in the shop, and having an extra set of hands is always needed in a lot of situations anyway. So for instance, if I was trying to hang these door slides, a lot of times I like to make my marks where they're going to go, and then trying to get those in place without some type of stick or help can be difficult. These little clamps will help you get those in place, and then you can set your door slide in place and then attach it to the frame. You're going to be putting the drawers in, so that's going to give you a little support, an extra hand in that situation. Also, small glue up where you don't want to break out the big clamps, so you just don't need them. You can just use these to hold the pieces in place while they dry. This is super handy for that because you can put multiples on there. They have plenty of clamping pressure for small parts like that. I was gluing those 2 pieces up. You need to just hold those while it's glue dry. Perfect for that. You can also use them like a face clamp, similar to a pocket hole when you're pocket holding pieces together. Because these 2 pieces pivot, you'll be able to put those pieces together and hold them flush while you drive your pocket holes. And I'm telling you, there's just so many uses for these things. We can just keep going. I keep mine here on the end of the workbench so that they're always handy, within arm's reach. But you can also clamp them on my shelves. You can see here, just anywhere these in the shop when you need them. They're very well made. This is a good quality plastic. It doesn't feel cheap at all. And the spring, I don't know how to explain how much pressure is there. Like, I couldn't hold this for an extended length of time just sitting here like this. My hand would get really tired because it's a really strong spring. Even putting your finger in it is uncomfortable. It doesn't like crush you, but it's uncomfortable. This is a really good set of hand clamps or spring clamps you can pick up in shop. Clamping assembly squares. If you have ever tried to put two pieces of plywood together making a cabinet, like on the router table, or even this workbench, or building cabinets, miter stations, anything like that, and you need those two pieces to stay 90 degrees while you're working on them, and it won't fall over on you constantly like you see here, or you're trying to pocket all things together, you just need them to hold at 90 degrees, free up your hands because you're by yourself. As we stated before, you just need an extra set of hands. This is what you need. And of course, they come in a variety of sizes. The 8-inch, the biggest ones, are under $15, under $20 the pound this point. And that's the most expensive set. You're going to get 4 in the set. Of course, you can pick up the 6-inch, the 4-inch, or the 3-inch as well. Of course, as they get smaller, the price goes down on the set. So how do they work? Well, they're actually really simple. They're a perfect 90-degree angle. Doesn't matter which size you get. If you're joining these two pieces together, then you would need to hold that somehow. If you listen to me and you pick up these, of course, this is the easiest, fastest way. You're going to clamp it in place. It's going to be there. Or you can use the F-style clamps like these. But as you can see, that took a little bit longer because I'm having to wrench that down on by myself and all that. But it works. So you can use the F clamps. You can use these clamps. Now this is a perfect 90 degree. I've got pocket holes drilled on the back, and I can attach these two pieces if I need to, when I need to, and if I want to go take a lunch break, this is going to be there. It's not going to move on me. While I'm out on the list, these little F clamps are also under $30, and they're really handy to have for applications just like this. If you want to pick some of those up, I'll drop a link to these, even though it's kind of bonus. These are great if you're just trying to lay your piece out, make sure everything's going to fit right, kind of dry fit, or mark for mortise and tenon, mark for dowels, mark for dominoes, anything like that where you just need everything to kind of stay in place. These little clamping squares are awesome. Although you can use them on either side and just clamp them in place like that. As inexpensive as these are and solidly made, it says glass reinforced nylon. I'm not sure what that means other than probably the material it's made out of. They're not going to break. They're really solid. They're perfect 90s. I also like the fact that on the back there's like a little 45 chamfer there, so you can get it all the way in that corner without anything getting in the way. And then of course it has a little scale here on the side, 45, and all of them are perfect 90 to each other. So if you want to mix and match them, you can do that as well. These are one of those tools you know when you see it, you're like, I gotta have me some of those. So go get them. These are bench cookies, and I like these because they have a grippy rubber on them on the top and bottom, and these are perfect for elevating your workpiece while you route, and it keeps it from sliding and moving around the workbench. I use these all the time, nearly daily after I'm routing small pieces, just because of how useful they are. The Craig setup bars, they use these all the time for filling a small bit, or even my blade on the table saw, or fence on the table saw. This is very, very useful. If I need to cut a half-inch groove in something, I need to set that straight bit. This notch is a half-inch. This set goes from 1/8 all the way up to half-inch in 16th-inch increments. They have several different settings there. These are useful to set that bit depth accurately every single time and very fast. And they come in a nice case so you don't lose them. This is the Rikon 2-inch orbital sander. Now, this I showed in last year's video, and it sold out. And it was sold out for months, probably 6 or 7 or 8 months before it finally started coming back in stock. They finally got them back in stock. I'll link to them in the description. If you make small parts or boxes or trays or anything you need to get into tight areas to sand, this is a great little machine. Now, it comes with a 12-volt battery, so yeah, you're going to get another battery platform, but literally it's one battery. And the battery life on it lasts quite a long time. Pick up these little round discs on Amazon. They're Velcro or hook and loop back, and this is just a great little tool. I use this almost every week in the shop when I'm making these trays and things. It helps you stand out the inside of the tray, get those tool marks out of there. It's a fantastic little machine. Now, it's not random orbital. In other words, it's just spinning in a circle. So, as long as you keep it moving, you're going to have a nice finish. If you leave it sitting still, it'll take the material off. Like, this is a powerful little sander for $100. Like, you can't find one of these anywhere else for this price. You can't. A lot of other places have very similar styles to this, and they can be $500, $600, $700. But for Rikon to come out with this one for $100, It is a steal. One of my favorite things I've ever added to my shop are these Quora wood organizers, and a lot of you got these this year because they've been on some really good deals. I have two of them in the shop, and you can see here they are stocked full. They hold a bunch of weight. Make sure you install them into a stud properly as the instructions state, but I've got them loaded up with wood, and that's where I keep my hardwoods up out of my way, off the floor, and they're properly stored. I was worried that they were going to cup or bend because of the two posts. That doesn't happen, and I've been using them for probably a year or more. These are really, really good storage racks for lumber. I can't recommend them enough. Next up, the Bosch 1617 router has been a very popular router this year, and I have it in my router table. Plus, I did a full review breakdown of that versus the DeWalt. It's such a great router for the price. I love the plunge base on this router. I love the way it adjusts, how everything works. Everything about this router is very, very nice. Now, the fixed base I preferred on the DeWalt, but as far as plunge base goes, power, everything else you're going to need in a router, you're getting this for usually under $200 for a fixed and a plunge base router with a 1/2 and a 1/4 inch collet. This is one of those routers that will last you for years and years. You can use that freehand, you can use it with the edge guide, you can use it at a router table. It's just such a versatile tool to have for the shop. And at one of the better prices for this power range of a router, it's just a solid 50. Fastcat zero clearance tape is what this is. I've used this for years, probably since 2017, 2018. This was very popular. I showed it in a video on miter saw upgrades this year, and a lot of you took advantage of this and love this. What's great about the zero clearance tape is it's easy on and it comes off easily. It's not going to damage, nothing permanent, and it makes you have better cuts. So you're going to get a really clean cut. It's also going to prevent those small parts from falling down into the throat plate and getting jammed, clogged up, stuff like that. And for the price, I think you get 5 in the pack. This is a really good product to upgrade your miter saw. It's a very easy upgrade anybody can do. One of my more popular videos was 5 table saw upgrades you should make, and the gripper was one of those, in my opinion. This is my favorite push block that I've ever purchased. I purchased this, not sponsored by anybody here. This is great for getting those small rips, thin rips, and I love the fact that you can adjust that leg down. Everybody who's been woodworking any time at all seen the gripper, and there's a reason why it is so popular. I don't buy the knockoff brand grippers. I showed one of ththose that I bought from Temu. Not as good. These are well made. They're going to last you for a very long time, and it just makes using your table saw that much safer and easier. That's why this is my pick for one of the best push blocks you can buy. This is UHMW plastic stuff that inserts in there. You can change these out easily as well. And they do come with 5 in the package, so you'll have several to use, whether you're doing bevel cuts or straight cuts or just something like mine. It just gets damaged over time. Improve your miter saw is the blade. It sounds simple, but if you're still using the stock blade and you're doing woodworking, not rough construction, take the blade that come with it off, because typically those are like 32 teeth and they cut really rough. That's what they're made for, rough construction, fast cuts. You want to get something like an 80 tooth. I use this 82 CMC chrome blade. It's a 12-inch saw, 12-inch blade. This is a fantastic blade, and they stay sharp a very long time. They create a very smooth, very nice, clean cut. You're going to see a major, major improvement if you just upgrade your blades. Again, I like the higher tooth blade for woodworking because 99% of the time we're doing cross cuts. And if you're doing a lot of cross cutting, a higher tooth blade will produce less tear out. In other words, a cleaner cut. There are other options available to you, but I think CMT is one of the better blades I've used, and I've kept CMT blades on this saw for years. The Jessom stock guides. If you cut a lot of sheet goods or even thinner stock, this really helps hold the stock against the fence. Because of the way these things are designed, they have rollers that are kind of slightly tilted towards your fence, and it literally pulls the stock or the plywood or the wood, whatever you're cutting, toward the fence. Keeps it pressed tight against the fence so you don't have any deviation in your cuts. This is an extremely easy upgrade. Jessom makes some amazing tools. I've been extremely pleased with this. I built this jig based on a design my friend had. I have 3 plans for this jig. If you have a saw stop, you want to make the same kind of jig, they're on the website. It's using 2 mag switches to keep it in place. These lock it down tight and it never budges from there. And then you can adjust these stock guides anywhere you need them to make the cuts that you need. This has been one of the better upgrades I've made to my table saw. And when they're not in use, because they're a mag switch, I can mag switch them to my metal storage cabinet, and it's up and out of the way. Or you can hang it. There's a hole here designed so that you can hang it on the wall, keep them out of the way and safe from getting damaged. The good thing about the Jessom stock guides is they can be adapted. You can make jigs to fit basically any table saw that you're using. The only downside of the Jessom stock guides is if you don't have a table saw with a fence similar to this, you'll have to come up with your own jig to table saw. That's not hard, so we're working with you.
I think the hardest part of starting is convincing yourself it's worth starting. For a while, this was just an idea I kept putting off. I had the questions, I had the process, I had the guide mostly doing it. But I kept thinking it had to be better before I shared it. So I opened up Shopify, uploaded the guide, coded the category, set my price, and hit publish. The scary part.
Featherboards and or push sticks. I know, it's a boring topic, but listen to me. There have been multiple people injured by the push stick that comes with their table saw. I've made a video about that. There's the thumbnail, what it looks like, and I'll put it in the description below. But typically, the push stick that comes with your table saw isn't that great. It's just plastic. Those can shatter and cause massive injuries to your arms, face, torso, etc. I highly recommend throwing that thing in the trash and getting a proper one or building your own out of wood. It's really not that difficult to make push sticks, depending on what style you like. Obviously, the micro jig gripper is one of the best that I recommend because it can basically go over the blade and still keep your hand safe so long as the blade is low enough. It's one of the things you have to watch out for. It is really great when you're cutting thin stock, so it's going to adjust your foot and just give you a balance. They recently come out with the gripper rub too. This is also a really nice little push stick. It works with a few different ways, but overall, I like the gripper cut. Both products make some push sticks also that have a foam tip, so if it does hit the blade, it cuts the foam and doesn't damage the plastic. Those are pretty nice as well. And then there's featherboards. Featherboards help keep your stock pushed against the fence, similar to these stock guides. So if you don't have a set of stock guides, this is the next best thing. I made a video with like 5 different jigs on how to use these in various ways. Vertical pressure, horizontal pressure, but these both featherboards are fantastic. And because they are made of that EVA foam, if it does get into the blade, it's not going to burst chunks of shards of plastic back at you. It's just foam. It's not going to injure you as long as you got your eye protected. One of the great things about these little featherboards is the fact that these inserts are replaceable, so if you do damage them, you can just buy a replacement. Because they're foam, they're not going to harm the wood, but at the same time, they give plenty of pressure against the fence to help prevent the kickback as well as keep it tight against the fence so your cuts are accurate. Now, if you want to take this saw or any table saw really to the next level, one of the most popular products I've shown recently is the Bow Extender Fence. I love this product. This is one of the most genius products that come out in 2023. It attaches to any table saw, just clamps right to the fence. Even these job site saws. And what makes this thing so awesome is it gives you in-feed and out-feed support, and that's where you need it most on these, especially these small saws that have a small tabletop on them. As you can see, I was able to cut very long boards with this saw, with the Bow Extender Fence on there, and it gives you that out-feed support that you need so much because you don't want those falling off the back. It's just unsafe, and it damages your lumber and all kinds of stuff. With this fence, you also get that ability for that vertical featherboard there that keeps that board pressed down toward the table. You can also put that bow featherboard on the outside, put the horizontal pressure on there, and you just get really, really accurate cuts with this system. And for the price of what you're getting, it just makes the table saw that much better. The fancy pike clamps, I showed these in a video, and you love them because you can really stock up on clamps. They're not overly expensive for what you're getting, and then you can add the pipe to it, depending on what size of project it is. So, cutting boards, tabletops, literally anything. You can get a pipe long enough for this. You can get pipes at your local home store, or you can get them on Amazon with these clamps. Add them in the cart with them. But these are 36-inch clamps. I find these to be about perfect for cutting boards and charcuterie boards, things like that. And they work